Good evening. Swami Sarvadevananaji is in Tucson and going tomorrow to Austin, Texas. So he has turned the Tuesday night class over to me. And his idea is that Tuesday night should always be some kind of jnana or some kind of philosophical class. And Wednesday nights, of course, are Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. So our class tonight, I'm taking up my usual topic when I fill in, which is Upanishadic meditation. And we'll start now. I do have, there's a few verses mantras we're going to take up. I have a handout. If you want to follow along with the mantras, it will be helpful. And it's also listed on the stream, in fact. Please. You can pass them out to anyone here. And Swami Sumanasanji will have one. So let's start by chanting the opening prayer, which I think you all should know by now, after this many years in Vedantic study. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitam Astu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Let's read this translation together. Om, may we be protected together. May we be nourished together. May we acquire strength together. May our learning shine forth in our lives. May we not find fault with one another. Om, peace, peace, peace. This translation is more or less borrowed from Swami Yogatmananda in Providence. I like it because it emphasizes this togetherness, though it's not perhaps completely literal, but it gives the essence of this prayer for beginning study, which is first that we are doing this study together. And may we be protected. May this study protect us. May what we learn protect us, because we learn how to focus our whole lives towards the divine, how to lead a spiritual life, which is ultimately the only protection. So may what we do here tonight protect us, and may it nourish us. May we be nourished by this study that we are to undertake. We take physical food for nourishing the body. We also have to take mental food, spiritual food. This is a kind of mental and spiritual food. So may it nourish us. And there's two ways of interpreting this part. May we gain strength, or may we with strength undertake this study with enthusiasm. May we not find it boring, and may it shine forth. This study, may it not just remain something intellectual. May it actually shine in our lives. May it manifest in our lives. May we become illumined. And may we not find fault with one another. In the course of our study, we may have some disagreements, or in trying to understand what we are studying. So may that remain civil and peaceful, and may we not fight with one another, find fault with one another, pick apart. We may disagree on philosophical points, but we should not, for that reason, attack each other personally. And then we pray for peace, all kinds of peace. So today I thought to take up the Mahānārāyana Upanishad. Now it's a very large Upanishad. It's considered a minor Upanishad, but it's got a lot of mantras, and it's kind of like a prayer book for Vedantists and monks. And it takes mantras from many different Upanishads and gathers them and different parts of the Vedas and gathers them all into one place. So it's actually a beautiful book for this kind of study of the Upanishadic mantras that have the real Vedantic and also sometimes the devotional meanings, the devotional attitudes. I should say that when I say Upanishadic meditation, what I mean is not exactly, not how the Upanishads teach us to meditate. One of the mantras today will address that a little bit, but that we take these mantras in the Upanishads as the subject of our meditation, that we let the power encapsulated in the words of the mantra bring us to a state of meditation, even a state of realization. So it's not something that someone who has never meditated will find this very difficult. It's for people who already have a regular meditation practice, who then have a certain amount of ability to calm our minds and focus them. And then we take the words of the mantras, either the English meaning or even better, the original Sanskrit, knowing the meaning, because there is a power in the Sanskrit words. These are mantras which have been uttered by illumined sages who are guiding us also to attain illumination. So it's a way of studying that brings the teachings deeper into our hearts and actually have the power to inspire us, even to illumine us. So that's a little bit about the idea behind this class. And the Mahānārāyana Upanishad, though it says Mahānārāyana, the great Lord, the Narayana, the Vishnu, actually it may be equally divided or even focuses a little more on Shiva, on the Shiva aspect of the divine. But then there are also purely Vedantic, many purely Vedantic texts, purely Vedantic mantras. So I have just selected five mantras from the Upanishad, scattered through it, not in the particular order, but I thought to start with the Gayatris, because we know the traditional Gayatri mantra, Om Bhurabhuvasva Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Nah Prachodayat Om. That ancient, very powerful prayer for spiritual illumination. Now, the Upanishad contains also a number of different Gayatri mantras associated with different forms of the divine. And there are, in fact, dozens and dozens of different Gayatri mantras have been composed for different aspects of the divine, which are used in worship, in puja. When we perform a worship, as part of the puja, we chant that Gayatri mantra associated with the deity whom we are worshipping. Now we know that all the deities, all the different forms of the divine are just different facets of the same infinite diamond that is the reality, the infinite divine. But still, because we're focusing on that particular facet, we have this mantra to chant. So there are two mantras which I particularly picked out from the first section of the Upanishad, mantras 23 and 29, which focus on the Shiva aspect and the Vishnu aspect of the divine. So let's look at these mantras. Now these, as I've printed them, they also have the little marks, and that helps us understand how to chant it. These are the special swara marks, which tell us when to go up and down. So let's start with this first mantra, and I'll chant it phrase by phrase, and then you will repeat, and then we'll chant it all together. And the Om is not given in the Upanishad, but because we always chant the Gayatri with an Om, so I've added the Om there. Om Tat Purushaya Tat Purushaya Vidmahe Mahādevāya Dhīmahi Tanno Rudra Prachodayāt Prachodayāt. Let's try it, the two sections. Om Tat Purushaya Vidmahe Mahādevāya Dhīmahi Tanno Rudra Prachodayāt. Now all together, we'll chant the whole mantra. Om Tat Purushaya Vidmahe Mahādevāya Dhīmahi Tanno Rudra Prachodayāt. Om Tat Purushaya Vidmahe Mahādevāya Dhīmahi Tanno Rudra Prachodayāt. All right, let's look at the meaning. The first is Tat Purusha. This is referring to the Supreme Reality. Tat Purushaya Vidmahe. May we know, may we realize. The root verb is vid, to know, to know directly. May we know Tat Purusha, what that Supreme Reality, which is the very basis of our being, the basis of this universe, the all-pervading reality. So it starts with this, may we know, and then Mahādevāya Dhīmahi, Mahadeva, which is another name of Shiva, the great God, the great shining being. Dhīmahi, Dhīmahi, may we meditate. So may we meditate on Mahadeva. And Tanno Rudra Prachodayāt. Prachodayāt. May Rudra impel us, guide us, push us to realize him. This Prachodayāt, that which also comes in the original Gayatri mantra. Prachodayāt, may he illumine, may he guide us, impel us. Here the translation is given as to impel us, to push us towards him, because so it's really a prayer seeking grace, divine grace, because it's very difficult to meditate, we know, but so this is a prayer for divine grace. In this case, Rudra, Mahadeva, who is, Rudra is the Vedic form of Shiva, you can say, which is most associated with the destructive aspect of the divine, or that aspect of the divine which again withdraws this universe into the subtle form, dissolves it, destroys it. Rudra. Swami Vivekananda says he's the terrible one. Tanno Rudra Prachodayāt. So may Rudra impel us. So the translation, sort of an English translation given here, may we know or realize the Supreme Person. For that, may we meditate upon Mahadeva, and to that meditation, may Rudra impel us. So it's a beautiful and a very powerful mantra, which we can use also as a prayer in our meditation. I should qualify, when we're talking about meditation, and I'm talking about meditation, many of us have received instructions in meditation from a guru, and those instructions always take precedence over anything else. If anything I say today in suggesting it contradicts what your spiritual teacher has taught you, follow what your spiritual teacher tells you, not what we discuss here. This is a kind of a supplement. We can, when we find it difficult to settle our minds down, we can take various tools. In fact, it was Swami Prabhuddhanandaji who told us in India, when he was visiting India, someone asked him, the instructions which we received from our guru, are we to follow those lifelong? And without a moment's hesitation, he said, yes, absolutely. But you can expand it, he told us. So we have received certain instructions, but we can expand it. So perhaps this falls in that category. Whatever it may be, this is, of course, a practice of studying the Upanishad deeply. So let's also look at the next one, which is the Narayana Gayatri, or Vishnu Gayatri, which all these Gayatri mantras take the same form, only the name of the deity is different. So let's look at this one. Om Narayanaya Vidmahe. Am I chanting too low? Om Narayanaya Vidmahe. Narayana Vidmahe. Vasudevaya Dhimahi. Tanno Vishnu Prachodayat. Now together. Om Narayanaya Vidmahe Vasudevaya Dhimahi Tanno Vishnu Prachodayat. Om Narayanaya Vidmahe Vasudevaya Dhimahi Tanno Vishnu Prachodayat. Om Narayanaya Vidmahe Vasudevaya Dhimahi Tanno Vishnu Prachodayat. So here we have Narayana, the Supreme Person. May we know Narayana. For that, may we meditate on Vasudeva, name of Krishna, son of Vasudeva. And Tanno Vishnu. May Vishnu, who is Narayana, who is Vishnu, is the one who is all-pervading, in whom this entire universe rests, as it were. May Vishnu impel us towards it. So it could be an interesting experiment to now we'll take these mantras for our meditation. We can sit for about 5-6 minutes. I suggest we can take one for half of the time, take one for 3 minutes, and then take the second one for 3 minutes, and understand we're actually meditating on the same one infinite divine reality. But Sri Ramakrishna used to say, very interestingly, some people are born with an element of Shiva, and some people are born with an element of Vishnu. And that determines their primary attitude in spiritual life. And those born with an attitude of Shiva tend to lean towards jnana, towards wisdom. And those with born with the element of Vishnu tend to lean towards devotion, towards bhakti. So it's kind of interesting to see what happens if we take for 3 minutes the first one, the Shiva Gayatri, and then 3 minutes the Vishnu Gayatri. So how does that sound? We will. I'll have to open my eyes once or twice to check the clock, and I think I have a clock on my phone which will make it easier to see what time it is. Set a timer, but I don't want to make the sound of the timer. That's the problem. All right, let's chant both of these together, and then we'll meditate briefly for a short time. Om Tat Purushaya Vidmahe Mahadevaya Dhimahi Tanno Rudra Prachodayat. Om Narayanaya Vidmahe Vasudevaya Dhimahi Tanno Vishnu prachodayat. So these are a sampling of the Gayatris. There are actually, even in the Upanishad, there's quite a number. There's one for Vinayaka Ganesha and for Agni. And then in the commentary, there's listed a whole bunch of others that aren't in the Upanishad, but for different, both male and female deities. Like here's one for Ma Kali. Kalikayai vidmahe shmashana vasinyai dhimahi tanno ghorah prachodayat. And there's also one composed for Sri Ramakrishna. Ramakrishnaya vidmahe gadadharaya dhimahi tanno deva prachodayat. Or there's two versions. The other version is Tanno Vishnu Prachodayat. So it's fascinating, really. And one thing that the commentator points out nicely is that all of these mantras, these Gayatri mantras, are in the plural form. We meditate. Not I meditate, it's we meditate. Well, why should it be? This is actually a very nice point. The commentator, this book, by the way, is a very nice book, Mahānārāyana Upanishad, translated by Swami Vimalananda. And he also has put in a Sanskrit commentary and an English commentary. And he says, human beings are gregarious by nature. They can hardly rise above the moral and spiritual level attained by the collectivity to which they belong. It is therefore necessary that every religious aspirant who strives for the uplift of his or her own self should also remember the whole community to which he or she belongs, so that all may be raised above the previous level. This great truth is implied in the plural expressions, may we know and may we meditate. And he goes on to say, the supplication implied in the last verb, means prachodayat, this prayer, may he impel, points out that the worshipper owes one's approach to God solely to the impulse granted by God himself. In all the Gayatris that follow the same motivation, on all the Gayatris, that same motivation runs centrally, and he points out, these Gayatris are repeated for getting purity of mind, accompanied by meditation on the deity indicated. So this is a wonderful little taste of the Gayatris offered in the Mahānārāyana Upanishad. Now, I'd like to turn to a verse much later in the Upanishad, which describes where do we meditate? In what place do we meditate? And this is a famous mantra which describes a place deep within our being, in the very core of our heart, which is of the nature of infinite space, and yet it also has the form of a lotus. And what is its nature? It is vipapam. It is entirely sinless. It is free from all. We all do various mistakes. We have all done things that we regret or that we wish we could have done better, and which we hope we will do better the next time. And that's the idea. We move from error to truth. We learn from our mistakes. But there is a place which is completely unaffected by all those things that we have done in our lives. And that is, what is that? That is the seat, the very location of the Supreme Being. And the Supreme Being resides there within this fortress, this citadel, which is our body. And it is there, within that, there is an even more subtle space, which is vast as the sky, the Akasha, which is free from all misery. And it is there that we are to meditate, says the Upanishad. So it's also a beautiful verse to learn and to chant, and it has its power. So let's take it phrase by phrase, shall we? Dahram vipapam. Dahram vipapam. Varame eshma bhutam. Varave eshma bhutam. Oh, it's actually Varave eshma bhutam. Oh, but the two versions are differing. Let's see what the book says. Sorry about that. No. Varave eshma bhutam. Yat pundarikam. Puramadhya samstham. Tatrapi dahre. Gaganam vishokam. Tasmin yadantaha. Tadupasitavyam. Tadupasitavyam. Okay. Dahram, this dahram is the space. This dahram is a small vipapam, free of sin, a sinless. Dahram vipapam vara veshma. Veshma is the dwelling, the abode of the vara, the supreme reality is existing there in this abode, which is, what is it like? It's like a pundarikam, like a lotus. And it's situated where? Puramadhya samstham. It is situated in the puram, this body, right within this body. And in that space, tatrapi, in that very space, dahre, gaganam, like the akasha, like the sky, vishokam, completely free of grief, tasmin, there, yat, anta, tadupasitavyam, we are to practice our meditation there, on that, in that sorrowless space, that sorrowless space of the heart, within it. So, it's a wonderful guide, a wonderful reminder. When we sit for meditation, this verse recalls to us, yes, the Supreme dwells within us, in the most subtle, inmost core of our being. And this guides us, as it were, to find a lotus deep within us. And within that lotus is an even more subtle place where the infinite, all-pervading akasha is there. And that is where we are to meditate on the Supreme Being, the infinite light. All right, let's chant it together a couple of times. I'll chant it with longer phrases this time. Dahram vipapam varame eshma bhutam. Yat pundarikam puramadhya samstham. Tatrapi dahre gaganam vishokam. Tatrapi dahre gaganam vishokam. Tasmin yadantas tadupasitavyam. Now all together. Dahram vipapam varameshma bhutam yat pundarikam puramadhya samstham tatrapi dahre gaganam vishokam tasmin yadantas tadupasitavyam. Dahram vipapam varameshma bhutam yat pundarikam puramadhya samstham tatrapi dahre gaganam vishokam tasmin yadantas tadupasitavyam. Dahram vipapam varameshma bhutam yat pundarikam puramadhya samstham tatrapi dahre gaganam vishokam tasmin yadantas tadupasitavyam. And let's take this now as a subject for our meditation, holding on to this beautiful guidance, this mantra which guides us to the Supreme dwelling deep within us. Well, the commentary, I'll read just one or two lines from the commentary of Swami Vimalananda. The body is named as Brahmapuram, analogous to the capital of a king. There is the royal mansion in the city to which the lotus of the heart is compared. The king resides in the mansion, and he must be sought there by supplicants. This passage describes that although Parabrahman is infinite, he can be accosted in the akasha, the space of the heart, through unbroken meditation. The heart is the mansion of the Supreme. Because the heart is the place for meditating upon the Supreme, it is qualified as sinless and pure. When a king is propitiated through proper service in his own residence, he would reveal himself and all his glory to his devoted servants. So also when the Supreme is approached through contemplation within oneself, one realizes the true nature of one's being. So that's a little bit of his beautiful commentary on this very powerful mantra. We have a little time left to take up one more. This verse that we just studied, this mantra, talks about meditating on the divine deep within us. Now I've selected the first mantra of the Narayana Suktam. The Narayana Suktam in this Upanishad, a number of suktas are hymns of praise or meditation are given. And in this Narayana Suktam, this entire universe is described as divine, as the form of the Lord, that the infinite divine manifests itself as this universe. And so it takes in a way, it takes the opposite approach. This approach is to seek within, and this next mantra, the approach is to see the divine in everything and in everyone. So that's the meaning of this. And this first verse it describes how the divine being has thousands of heads. In other words, innumerable heads, countless eyes. In other words, every head of every being is actually the head of God. Is none other than the divine itself. Every being has two eyes. All the eyes in the entire universe are the eyes of God. And from that divine comes all joy. He's the source of all joy, of all delight, Vishvashambhuvam. And this very universe is Narayana, the supreme deity, that shining and imperishable being, who is the supreme, who is the goal. Or there are actually two readings, and I put here the reading which is more commonly chanted, is Paramam Padam. But it's also given, and in fact in this book it's given as Paramam Prabhum. And I thought if I made it Prabhum I would chant it wrong because I'm so used to chanting it the other way. But it's actually Paramam Prabhum, the Supreme Lord. This is, so let's, without taking too much time discussing it because we're already creeping up towards the end of our hour, let's chant it first of all. We'll chant it phrase by phrase. Sahasrashirasham Sahasrashirasham Devam Vishwaksham Vishvashambhuvam Sahasrashirasham Devam Vishwaksham Vishvashambhuvam Vishvam Narayanam Devamaksharam Paramam Padam Vishvam Narayanam Devamaksharam Paramam Padam Vishvam Narayanam Devam Aksharam Paramam Padam. Now all together. Sahasrashirasham Devam Vishwaksham Vishwashambhuvam Vishwannārayanam Devam Aksharam Paramam Padam. Sahasrashirasham Devam Vishwaksham Vishwashambhuvam Vishwannārayanam Devam Aksharam Paramam Padam. Now, I didn't come up with my own translation for this. I've took two to see how you get a sense of how actually it can be understood slightly differently. And of course, the meditation is not expressly told here that one should meditate, and yet the whole suktam is meant for that. And you can read further. There are a number of mantras, I forget how many, in this beautiful hymn describing this universe, the divine being as manifesting in this universe, as this universe. Meditate upon that effulgent one, the Devam, as the shining being, of myriad heads and myriad eyes, Sahasrashirsham, Vishwaksham, Vishwaksham, of uncounted eyes, infinite number of eyes, from whom has come forth all the good in the world, Vishwashambhuvam, or otherwise translated, the source of delight for the whole universe, Vishwashambhuvam, who is the universe, the great deity dwelling inside the elements, the changeless, the supreme goal, the Paramam Padam, the supreme goal, or the Supreme Lord, as we said. This universe is the eternal being, Narayana, the imperishable, the supreme, the goal, multi-headed and multi-hide, that is, omnipresent and omniscient. The commentator gives this idea that being everywhere and all-knowing is suggested by this Sahasrashirsham and Vishwaksham. The resplendent, the source of delight for the whole universe. So it's a wonderful verse to memorize, and let's chant it together a couple more times, and then we'll take this as our only the third meditation for the evening. Sahasrashirsham Devam Vishwaksham Vishwashambhuvam Vishwannārayanam Devam Aksharam Paramam Padam. Sahasrashirsham Devam Vishwaksham Vishwashambhuvam Vishwannārayanam Devam Aksharam Paramam Padam. This is the. There's also the Purusha Suktam, which begins with the same word, Sahasrashira Sham, Sahasrashira Sha Purusha, Sahasraksha, Sahasrapat. It adds also the thousands of feet, but it's the same idea that this universe is. Of course, Purusha Sukta has a slightly different emphasis as the sacrifice of the Supreme Being to manifest this universe. So that brings to a close our hour. We have meditated with these wonderful mantras, the Gayatris, and then this Dahram Vipapam, and then this Sahasrashirasham Devam. And thank you for giving me this opportunity to meditate with you. It's always lovely to meditate together, and with these beautiful and very powerful mantras. Are there any questions? There's a question, online question. Are there any questions in the room, or comments, or complaints, or objections? Balakrishna will read the question from online.
Swami, there are maybe two questions, but three statements. In exactly what ways is the chanting of these and other traditional mantras different in practice and effects from the mantra received from the Guru?
Okay, the mantra received from the Guru, that is our primary vehicle for sadhana. That mantra is connects us directly to the divine. It's, shall we say, it pulls us right into the stream of the Guru Parampara, the lineage of gurus, disciple. Every guru was a disciple before, and so the chain of gurus going back, and how many of those gurus have been realized souls, have been powerful spiritual teachers and saints. So when we receive that mantra, it's a treasure which is not to be squandered or just taken lightly, but is to be treasured deep within, like Sri Ramakrishna's parable of the oyster, which comes up to the surface of the ocean when the star Swati is in the ascendant, and opens up and catches one drop of rain. And when it catches that drop, it closes, and it goes down deep into the bottom of the ocean, and there it forms a pearl from that drop of rain. So the mantra is like that. We receive it and we treasure it deep within, and as we go on repeating it, we are invoking the manifestation of the divine deep within us. So that is more of a devotional practice, and we have received the instructions for its use, its repetition. This is a way of studying the Upanishads, so it falls a little more in the Jnana Marga, where we are studying these mantras. We are meditating with these mantras to understand their deeper meaning, to help us move forward in spiritual life. I believe that this practice is particularly powerful when we're already somewhat established in meditation, as I mentioned before. So with the mantra we've received from our Guru, we have practiced. Our minds are now accustomed to holding on to a mantra and focusing on it, repeating it, going deep into it, intuiting the deeper meaning of it. And now, with that same mind, which now has been honed through the practice of mantra japa, we can also focus it with these mantras. So that would be my reply to this question.
The next, please remind me, what is the name of the mantra which guides us to the supreme dwelling deep within us?
Well, we had the Gayatri. We started with the Gayatri mantras in the Mahānārāyana Upanishad. That's the first section. Mantra number 23 and 29 were the two that we chanted, and then we had that that description of the lotus, and within the lotus is the space, and that's the dwelling of the Supreme, and that's the 12th section of the Upanishad, verse 16.
The last question. Can you please give one example of a Vedantic meditation that householders can practice?
Well, these are perfect examples. The ones we did tonight. This meditation of the Dahram Vipapam, and also this meditation of Sahasrashirasham. These are Vedantic meditation. What's more Vedantic than to see this entire universe as a manifestation of the divine, to realize that nothing is separate from the divine, that divine pervades and fills everything, and everything is a manifestation of the divine. Every being is manifesting God. Through every pair of eyes that we look at, we're looking at the eyes of God. That's this meditation described in this first mantra of the Narayana Suktam. So that is what I would suggest for that. So, shall we then? Oh, yes.
Swami, one question I have is the first two mantras. To be able to truly meditate on it, are you supposed to have some background of concept of Shiva and his qualities, or in the second one about Narayana? Like, how do you otherwise kind of understand even the subtle difference in these two?
That's true. That's an excellent question, and I'm not sure of the answer, but I do. We who have been in this tradition, we have some sense, don't we, of Shiva and Vishnu. But the mantra itself will guide us to that. And the meanings of the particular words, no, Mahadeva, Rudra, Tatpurusha, or Narayana, Vasudeva, Vishnu. These also carry their power and their meaning. So I feel that the mantras themselves reveal to us the deity. We can have a certain amount of imagination, but actually the mantras reveal to us the deity.
Thank you.
We use this mantra, the first one, we'll be using this soon. Shivaratri is coming up. We'll be using the Tat Purushaya Vidmahe, this mantra for Shiva, throughout the night as we bathe the image of Shiva, as we bathe the lingam. We'll be using that mantra. And of course the Triambakam, the mantra beginning Triambakam, we use those mantras for bathing the deity. So, thank you.
One more.
One more?
Yeah. Was Thakur a manifestation of Narayana?
Well, that's a wonderful question, because people say so, but then, it's very interesting. If you look at Kshuriram, Sri Ramakrishna's father, he went on a pilgrimage to Gaya, where there's the famous temple, the Vishnupada temple, the holy footprint of Lord Vishnu himself is inscribed on a stone there. And it's a wonderful temple, wonderful atmosphere there. And he went there to perform certain rituals associated with honoring one's ancestors. And offering the balls of rice and banana, the pindas, into the river. And so this is, the place of Gaya is particularly, and this temple is particularly associated with this ritual. So he had gone there, and he had a vision of Lord Narayana, of Vishnu, who told him that he would be born as his son. So, at the same time, Sri Ramakrishna's mother, she was walking by the Shiva temple outside their home, and suddenly she saw a light coming from that temple, emanating from that temple, and enveloping her, and she lost external consciousness. And after that experience, she felt that she had become pregnant, that she was carrying a divine child. So, was Sri Ramakrishna an embodiment or a manifestation of Narayana or of Shiva? He emphasized the harmony of religions. He emphasized that all the different forms of the divine are just that, different names and forms of the divine. So even in his birth, even before his birth, he was already teaching, giving this message through this differing experiences of his father and his mother. Om asato ma asadgamaya tamaso ma jyotirgamaya mrityorma mritangamaya. Om shanti shanti shanti. From the unreal, lead us to the real. From darkness, lead us unto light. From death, lead us to immortality. Om, peace, peace, peace.